Chaplain Kevin Massey here. I'm here to talk today with you about resiliency. The Civil Air Patrol Strategic Plan, Goal 5.2, taking care of our members, states that we will create a climate of resiliency. It's a big emphasis throughout the whole Air Force total force right now. So what is resiliency? Resiliency is the ability to bounce back when we are faced with adversity and hardship. When we're faced with adversity and hardship, it will naturally bring us down some, right? And it brings us down maybe from here to right here. But if I start from up here, well, it brings me down to about here. Being resilient means really being up here so that adversity and hardship, they will bring me down, but maybe not as far. So how do we do that? How do we be up here? By bolstering our resiliency. I'm going to share with you today some practical ideas about how to bolster your personal resiliency. I want to invite you to think about resiliency this way. We're human beings, you and I. Human beings are comprised by numerous intersecting beings. So I'm a physical being. Here's my body. I'm healthy today. My physical being is part of my human being. I'm also a relational being, a social being. That is, there are creatures in this world that I care about and who care about me. I'm also a spiritual being. That is, I have beliefs about what the universe and its creator mean to me, and that can be different from person to person, but somehow our beliefs about the universe and the meaning of the world are part of who we are. We're also emotional beings, intellectual beings, and all of these marvelous beings together make up your human being. Being resilient means being as strong and well-fed in as many of these beings as we can be. If you are strong and well-fed in many of your beings, and then we suffer a hardship or adversity in one of our beings, the other beings can carry us through. If I have an adversity in my life, for example, let's say I get sick, yet my relational being and my spiritual being are strong, it'll bring me down some, but not as far as if those other ones weren't strong. Bolstering resiliency is intentionally and purposefully feeding our intersecting beings so that they are strong and healthy. And I'll invite you to think for just a moment, when you think about these intersecting beings, the physical being, the social being, the spiritual being, if you think about those beings, which of those beings is being fed if, for example, you take your dog for a walk in a beautiful forest? So you might think, well, that's my physical being because I'm getting exercise. But then you might reflect, well, but also my relational and social being are being fed because I love my dog. And then you could also think, well, my spiritual being is also being fed because every time I'm in that forest, I feel a sense of grandeur and awe. Well, you're on to the marvelous secret that many things that we might do to intentionally feed one of our beings actually feeds more than one of them at the exact same time. All those things together are feeding our human being. I'll tell you one thing that I like to do to bolster my resiliency. It's cooking. I love to cook. And when I cook just like a cooking show. I measure out all my ingredients and my utensils, and that act of putting all that stuff out there, I can just feel my stress evaporating. And at that time, I'm feeding my emotional being, my intellectual being, my physical being. But you know what I like to do is I like to cook for people that I care about. And then that time, I'm actually feeding my relational and social being. I invite you, fellow volunteer airmen, to commit to bolstering your resiliency. Reflect on what your thing is, or your things are. What are the things that you like to do that you know you can feel them feeding your intersecting beings? It's personal for you. Whatever it is, I invite you to commit to resiliency. I invite you to commit to take care of yourself in such a way that you are feeding as many of those intersecting beings as possible. Whatever it is you like to do, whatever it is that makes you feel recharged, strengthened, whether it's listening to music, exercising, prayer or meditation, spending time with family and friends, whatever it is for you, I invite you to commit to resiliency by committing to do those things. to feed and care for your human being. Because every one of us have tough days ahead. We're going to have that day where nothing seems to go right. We're going to have that day where we feel like we need to give up, where one part and one of our beings is maybe under assault. When that happens, look to your other beings. Hang on to them. Think about how strong they are and feed them. And that is how we get through tough times and how we continue, even in hardship, to bolster resilience. You, my fellow volunteer airmen, are our greatest resource. Your self-care, therefore, isn't selfish. Just as maintainers care for aircraft, we take care of ourselves and each other as wingmen. You taking care of yourself, bolstering your resiliency, is about putting the best version of you possible into the mission, into your family, into school, into your work. Your communities depend on you. So let's commit to resiliency in ourselves so that when our communities call on us, we are ready for them. Thank you for listening in today to this message about bolstering your resiliency. Thank you for committing to resiliency. Thank you especially, my fellow volunteer airmen, for your service to our communities. This is Chaplain Kevin Massey. Thank you.